This morning, we've got Professor Babatunde Salako, who is the DG, Nigeria Institute of Medical Research. That's the NIMR. Good morning, Professor. Thank you for joining us today. Of course, the
Good
big
morning
question
for
will be,
having me. Thank you.
all right,
Good
so
morning.
yes, we can hear you. Where are we in the scheme of things? Why do we not have at least a solution to COVID-19?
Well, as Nigerian, you mean? COVID-19 is a new disease, and for every new disease, it's always a challenge to find immediate solution to an outbreak of that magnitude. Ideally, the best way for us to have solution is to get a vaccine, which can be used to prevent infection from everybody. For everybody from those who already have the infection. However, getting a vaccine is not as easy as that because it takes a lot of time and energy to get vaccine. To get a vaccine, is usually there is a need for you to tinker with the virus. Either you attenuate the virus to make it a weak virus or kill the virus before injecting this into animals to find out whether they will evoke the required antibody response from people. These days, however, there is a faster way, which is more of a recombinant vaccine technology, in which case you need to first sequence the virus and then look at a particular spike area within the architecture of the virus, which is quite immunogenic. And this is one thing you can then cleave from the architecture, and you then take that into another small bacteria, which is called a plasmid. That bacteria will then multiply to produce more of the viral protein that you have cleaved. And this is also then taken to another bacterium, which we then produce by cloning in large number the viral protein. And that viral protein needs to be cleaned up properly for you to then inject that either into the mammalian cell or into animal for trial. Now, all this takes a little bit of time and big technology to be able to do that. I know that there are quite a number of candidate vaccines that have gone through that process and are currently being tested. Most vaccines will probably not pass that stage. You need the biotechnology company to support that kind of thing. So it's something that is ongoing, but it's not as easy as people expect it to be.
Prof, tell us, what is the state of medical research in this country? Because we've had several opportunities and we'll keep having them. What are we doing?
We are doing our best. For example, as I speak, I've always been asked about our capability to produce vaccine in the last few weeks or months since the outbreak started. So we went back to the table to look at what we can do. And we have then decided to begin the process.
I think I lost when stuff that they went back to begin the process. So, okay, Prof, you were talking about going back to begin the process. What process was that, please?
Well, the process of producing a recombinant vaccine for a laboratory trial, which is ongoing as I speak. We are at the stage of cloning the plasmid in the special E. coli bacterium, which will then provide us with the viral protein that we can use within the lab. That process is ongoing in our lab. And I believe in the next few weeks or so, we'll be able to tell you if we are going to be able to move beyond that stage. However, there are other research going on talking about drug repurposing and finding new drugs. And in Nigeria, we are going to start very soon a clinical trial trying chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. And the process of doing this trial takes a long time. You need to go through an RB, you need to get some kind of registration and approval from NAFDAC, which is where we are now. And as soon as we get that, within the next 1 week, we should start that process with the Lagos University Teaching Hospital. So that is also going on in
But
other places. I also know that Lagos State is
just a
also
minute,
doing the
Professor
same.
Salako, if you can hear me. We thought that NAFDAC had given that approval to begin clinical trials of chloroquine.
Yeah, that's exactly what we are doing now, so that we can provide information for Nigerians on whether they should use chloroquine or not.
Right. Now, for a lot of people, a lot of Nigerians that heard you saying that, well, we have started tinkering with the virus and we're, building towards something here. They will get hopeful thinking that, you know what, maybe in the next couple of weeks or months, Nigeria might just come up with a vaccine. But then I'll tell you the truth. There are a lot of professionals who say, let's be honest with ourselves. Nigeria does not have the capacity to produce a vaccine or anything close to it. And you have said that you've started the process. So I'd like you to balance this. Do we really have the capacity to produce something close to a vaccine?
Well, there is a difference between the capacity to produce a mass and the capacity to investigate the possibility of developing a candidate vaccine, which is what we are doing. Now, this is in the preclinical stage, is the earliest stage of vaccine development, where you are trying to see if the viral proteins that you are able to clone will be able to induce an antibody production in the mammalian cell or in an animal. That's the earliest stage. And when you finally get one that can induce an antibody, then you need to clearly purify that antibody. That is the process, which will make it a little longer, because before you inject such into a human, you must make sure that this is pure enough not to cause.
Oh, okay.
We'll make this work.
Yeah.
We'll definitely make this work.
And in addition to that, he also needs to tell us, maybe moving forward, in terms of, look, how far have we gone in the clinical trials for chloroquine? Because, that clearance was given a while ago. I know he says in a couple of weeks. I wonder how many weeks exactly for the other trials, maybe hydroxychloroquine, even remdesivir, which is also being approved. So go ahead.
Okay, Prof, I understand you're back. Please, can you go ahead with the, you were trying to explain what the, having the capacity to actually produce a vaccine is and, doing some investigation. Please, so let us know what stage we're at now.
Yeah, what we have now is trying to clone the viral protein with a plasmid, which is also a special bacteria. That's where we are now. And I imagine that within the next few weeks, perhaps we should have gotten to a station where we are already getting the viral protein of interest that we want to investigate further.
In terms of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine and maybe even remdesivir, people are talking about, have we started investigating? Maybe we'll start with chloroquine. At what stage are we? Have we found anything conclusive regarding chloroquine for the Nigerian population, that is?
Well, I am sure that within the next 1 week or thereabout, we should recruit the first patients onto that study. I'm also aware that Lagos State will also start the same study in the next few weeks. So, give or take, in the next 2 weeks, we should be able to tell you if we have started or not.
Definitely, we'll be expecting to hear that. But, with the benefit of hindsight here, I'd just like to step back a bit. Some will say we had an opportunity with Lassa fever. We had an opportunity with Ebola. And for them, they think we missed the opportunity. So why would we think, how audacious are we trying to take on COVID-19 when we sort of missed the chance with Ebola and Lassa fever? So with the benefit of hindsight, do you think we got it wrong there?
I believe that the kind of public health effects that COVID-19 has had all over the world appears more intensive than what we have seen with Lassa, for example. So it has evoked more interest in people, not just African, because the disease ravaged the whole of the world. So everybody is interested in finding solutions. So it's not just an African problem, and I believe that's why different methods of finding solutions have become very, very common these days.
Well, talking about finding solutions, we understand that the Complementary and Alternative Medicine Department of the Federal Ministry of Health has instructions or is working on some of those alternative solutions, if you like. Do you think it's something that your institute might also be looking at? Something novel?
Well, we are agency of the Federal Ministry of Health, so we are working in close contact with the TCAM at the ministry. But we have just been informed about that solution, and the Honorable Minister has asked us for a comment before it moves forward. We are trying to put that across to send it to the Honorable Minister. Really, what the TCAM of the Federal Ministry has developed is herbal preparation from common and herbal herbs that people have already started taking. So it's really not something out of the blue. And putting it together and wanting to know whether this has the particular effect on a particular symptom of COVID-19, not necessarily a cure for COVID-19, but something that is formulated.
Well, okay, I think we've taken that break one more time. It will be interesting to find out really how.
Which break is that?
Well, I mean, that's just a
Come on,
pause.
no, just kidding.
You know, just a pause because I would.
He's back.
Okay,
back
he's
from
back.
that break.
Okay, yes. So, Prof, please go ahead.
Yes, so I said what has been formulated really is a solution for treating symptoms, respiratory symptoms targeted at cough for COVID-19. It's it's not a cure per se. And they are actually asking NAFDAC to take a look at it and certify it for use. And I believe before that happens, it needs to go through some safety tests, which NAFDAC or our institutions can do. Now, after that, then we can begin to tell if this is something that can be deployed.
What are the chances of Nigeria producing a homegrown solution to such ailments as COVID-19 and the ones that my colleague mentioned, Lassa fever, Ebola and the rest? What are the chances of Nigeria coming up with a solution that is useful for us and that may even be exported?
I believe there is some chance in it, provided appropriate and adequate financing can be made available, because this is really the rate limiting step for most of the discoveries that we need to do in research. But oftentimes, there are not enough funds to prosecute this project. But if we have dedicated funds all out there, there are quite a number of very brilliant Nigerian researchers in the universities and research institutes that can tackle the problem. And I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility. But what we usually have that there is no fund. We must necessarily have dedicated funds for Lassa, for example, for meningitis, diseases that have been ravaging us in Nigeria, and then, of course, for COVID-19. Now, if we have that, and we can put this out for Nigerian researchers and scientists, I'm sure that you will find one solution from them.
Are you confirming by what you've just said now, the news out there that the Nigeria Institute of Medical Research is underfunded?
Well, for every agency of government, we have that complaint. I mean, government tray is very full. At the same time, we think we need to prioritize so that we can give the institutes and researchers within the country the opportunity to make their own contribution to what is going on.
In other words, NIMR is not getting enough opportunity for funding to develop a vaccine. That's your point, sir, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so when you talk about having some chance, when last did the country develop a vaccine for anything?
The country has been producing vaccines in the past, especially yellow fever vaccine. In actual fact, our institute started as a yellow fever vaccine production center in the 1920s, before it metamorphosed into what it is now. And then we have a vaccine production institute too around here by there, which has been privatized with, I believe, Mayor and Baker. And so this and the Federal Ministry of Health are looking at how we can bring back that capacity and technology to be able to start producing again vaccine in Nigeria. That was done a few years ago or a few months ago. So I believe it's still in the teaching stage. And I'm sure in the next few months, we should be seeing some progress from that direction.
Okay, we appreciate that background, but what about specifics? I mean, which year did we develop a vaccine?
I can't remember specifically. It's not as if Nigeria developed the vaccine.
Oh, just at the crucial. Okay, well, he's going to come back. Don't worry about that. So we need that bit of information. So, Rob, please go ahead.
Yeah, that Nigeria has the capacity to produce vaccine. It's different from developing it.
Oh, so we haven't. But Prof, if we haven't in recent history, why should people be optimistic when you say there's some chance to develop something?
Well, it has to start one day. I mean, that we haven't done it before doesn't mean that we cannot begin now. And it's only when we start that we can tell if we are going to be able to do it or not. So I believe that because the methods which I have explained to you, it's a common knowledge. And it only requires that you have the proper equipment and instruments and the technical know-how by researchers and scientists to be able to do this. So as it is now, it's not a rocket science any longer, but it takes time and it needs people who have in-depth knowledge and who also have support of funds and equipment to go through that process.
We understand that there's been a funding challenge. You've talked about that in terms of budgetary allocation, for funding research in the country. But yes, that has been a challenge. But this is a new realm of things. And yes, we recorded our first case on the 27th of February. And, before that, we had been talking about measures being taken. So I'd like to know, in the space of, let's say, from January, February up till this moment, has then been some form of, perhaps more funding, more attention, specifically given to the NIMR?
We are expecting.
So in other words, nothing has changed.
Well, something has changed in the fact that we continue to meet regularly and looking for how this funding can be effected. And this has been going on since the beginning of the outbreak, and it has continued. And we are hoping and expecting that when the fund starts to be distributed out, that some certainly will come to NIMR. We have an inkling that something will come to NIMR.
So does NIMR get funding from international bodies? I mean, I thought at some point the Academy of Science used to do that.
NIMR ideally should be getting funding from government and some private sector interest group, and then fund health research in the institutes of research and the universities. But that capacity does not exist for us. So what we are able to do is to work with development partners and write grants like any other scientists all over the world and compete for this grant. And then when we're able to win one, we get the fund to prosecute whatever research interest or protocol that we have put together. And these are mainly donor funds. But the point is, donor funds do not always address the national problem, especially if it is not something that is global, causing international health risk. But if it is peculiar to a nation, then the nation needed to look for funds and put out for researchers within the country or outside it to look for solution for that problem. So what we have been doing is really to write out grants and get some fund, work in collaboration with others. And as I speak, we have more than about 20 of such international grants with us. We are also hoping that in the next few weeks or so, we might be able to get one little grant for COVID. But this is not the kind of amount we are talking about if we must look into drug development or vaccine production. It has to be a dedicated fund. It has to come from the country.
All right, then the next 2 weeks it shall be then. We do thank you for talking to us this morning, Professor Babatunde Salako, Director General, Nigeria Institute of Medical Research, the NIMR.
Thank you very much for having me.